Right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Ali, and I'm the manager of Enlighteens Education. And I have been working in the college counseling industry for over 9 years now. So today, I have our senior consultant, Daniel, to share with us, do not answer the COVID-19 CommonApp prompt. Daniel has more than 10 years essay editing experience. He helped students admitted to University of Pennsylvania, University of Chicago, Vanderbilt, Carnegie Mellon in computer science, Wesley, USC, UC Berkeley, UCLA, and more. Hello, Daniel, welcome.
Hello, hi Ali, how are you?
Okay, before we started, please let me introduce a little bit about Enlighteens and what we do. Enlighteens Education offers personalized college planning services and strengths-based mentoring approach to identify each student's character, interests, strengths, opportunity, and discover a unique education path to realize their long-term goals. We are a group of educators who have many years of experience in college admissions counseling and working with families in the Bay Area and beyond. This includes guiding families through the confusing college application process, course selection, extracurricular activities, summer planning, and test prep. Our offices in Cupertino and Pleasanton are home to our full-time consultants and support staffs with an average of 8 years of experience. Our years of teamwork also let us offer stability and a high level of synergy. So tonight's webinar has two parts. First part is Daniel's presentation, and second part will be Q&A. Okay, let me give the stage to Daniel and get started.
All right, thanks, Ali. Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Hope everyone is staying safe. There's a lot of stuff going on in our world around us today, also this week. So yeah, definitely a lot going on that we're figuring things out. But that also means with our students or their teenagers, now's a good time to kind of maybe talk to them, get their feelings, get their emotions, their thoughts about what's going on in the world. This is also a great practice for critical thinking, response, and which is all related to self-reflection and growth, which is what we're going to talk about a lot today about the CommonApp. All right, so speaking of things going on in our world, we've got COVID going on, of course, but we also have college apps, every year is coming up this fall again. So things to know about the CommonApp is the first topic. I want to make sure we cover, what is actually included on the CommonApp, what we need to make sure we prepare for our students so that they have a comprehensive understanding, right, of everything that they need. Number two, we'll talk about, you may have heard that there's this new kind of COVID section added to the CommonApp. It's an optional 250-word response. We'll talk about if you should talk about it at all, or if you do, what you should include in there. Number three, CommonApp analysis, taking a look at the general trend of CommonApp and who uses CommonApp and where, which students from where and why that's going to affect number four, choosing a main topic essay for the CommonApp. And like Ali mentioned, we'll end with our Q&A at the end. Okay, first things to know about CommonApp. So if you're unfamiliar, if you've never really looked at it before, usually we encourage our students to start a CommonApp account as early as possible. You can also create like a dummy account to just figure things out, just kind of explore. It is pretty straightforward. It's pretty intuitive. It's an all-in-one platform. And what this means is you're going to be, the students, right, will be inputting things like the classes that they took, the grades that they got, the test scores, a lot of self-reporting about family information, personal information about the student, beliefs, things like that. But this is also the place where the schools will collect things like letters of recommendation. The recommenders will receive an invitation, usually the teachers, counselors from the school, and they're going to submit their letters of rec to CommonApp directly, right, to the platform. It also, like I said, includes the section where you can talk about yourself. So this also includes the activities, honors, achievements. You do have a very limited space, so choosing what to write about and how to write about them is really, really important. I'm not going to talk about that too much today, but the general rule is, think about you're making a resume, right? Like you don't really want to just list what you did. So we really have to figure out what was it about this activity that that you took away from it, or something that you contributed to it, right? It's not just simply what you did on a day-to-day basis, because that could be a little dry and that doesn't really tell us about the student. Also for certain majors, especially arts, music, something that's related to that, there will be a section for portfolio submission. So basically an all-in-one platform where we also include your application essay, your supplement essays. So there's going to be a personal statement. And if you're unfamiliar, again, there are seven prompts to choose from compared to the UC's eight. So you have 7 main prompts and you have to choose one, and you have 650 words limit for one main essay. Depending on your major, depending on the school, there may be also supplement essays, anywhere from like 0 to 3 to 5. They could be short, they could be 1-word answers, they might even be 650, they might be 1,000, they might be 1 page. So it kind of just, again, depends on what you're applying for. But the main essay is mandatory, and this one essay will go to all the schools on the Common App. And most schools that are private schools are on the Common App. Okay? UCs have their own application system. So this is basically the fundamentals that you need to first understand about Common App so that we can talk about the essays and the additional sections. So speaking of essays, this is kind of like our traditional understanding, right, of college applications for high school seniors. Their goal, of course, is getting into some school that they've chosen. Usually you might hear it presented as these 4 categories. We've got a combination of GPA, test scores, so your SATs, ACTs, and also if you have your SAT 2 subject tests, your extracurriculars, of course, things that you do outside of school. So this is literally anything you do outside of school that's not for a class assignment or anything academic, nothing related to your class. Of course, it could still be things done at the school, but just outside of the classroom, and it's not for the classroom like homework. So this can also include personal things, taking care of the family, anything like that is technically extracurricular, right? Because the keyword is curricular. And then that 4th category, we've got essays, college essays, and letters of recommendations, usually for private schools. Most public schools will not bother with letters of rec. But here at Enlighteens, our team, over the years and based on our experience, we've broken this down to something a little more tangible based on what we have seen as kind of the major factors. And we've also estimated sort of how much they kind of affect your application. So number 1 is still, of course, GPA. You've also heard recently a lot of schools, universities, they are thinking about going test optional or even just eliminating tests as an effect of this COVID situation. But there are also a lot of studies coming out saying that your 4-year GPA, high school GPA, is a strong predictor of your success in college. So there is this shift moving away from it. And you've also heard about the UCs saying that they have this 5-year plan. They're moving away from SAT, ACT, and hopefully they're going to design their own test actually. But in any case, right, academic GPA is still the number 1 most important thing. That's why if you have a student who is a student athlete, of course, right, you have to maintain a certain grade, which is usually like a 2.0 or higher. So yeah, GPA is important. There are a lot of things you could do, to boost your GPA or make sure that your GPA is as strong as it can be. Definitely play to your student's strengths, right? If you know that your student is not a math person, please don't force so many math classes on him or her. That would actually hurt in the long term, especially if they, don't do well in those classes, right? So really, really important to plan classes strategically. Standardized tests, that's a pretty big section as well, because it's a standardized assessment of what you know compared to all other high schools who are also applying to those same high schoolers who are also applying to the same colleges. So it's a nice baseline for a benchmark in other case. I've shared in the past examples of students who I've worked with who had lower GPA, below average for their school, but then also studied really hard with me and was able to raise their ACT or SAT to top like 98, 99 percentile. And that really helped them get into higher reach schools than we originally had planned. And then also application essay. Really, really important how you write it, what you write about, because this is the only opportunity that the colleges get to understand you as a person, as a human, not just numbers, right? And especially a school like UC, they have like 40,000 students on campus, and they're receiving hundreds and thousands of applications. they really need a way to filter out students quickly, and that's going to be by numbers, unfortunately. So GPA, standardized test scores, but the application essay is going to be the thing that kind of puts you over the edge, right? And this is even more true for private schools. And the extracurricular activities, these four in particular, are mostly under the student's control. And what we mean by that is if you plan correctly, if you choose wisely, you can maximize your chances just by focusing in these four areas. After that comes your recommendation letters. This is technically also under student control because you can develop a strong relationship with your teachers. I've had a lot of students say like, oh yeah, I like this teacher. Okay, great. Do you talk to your teacher? Not really. Like outside of class? No, not really. Do you participate in class? Sometimes. Like, oh, okay, well then, I don't know how useful that recommendation is going to be compared to someone who takes the time to get to know their teacher, like after school or between classes during, study break, tutorial period, something like that. So letters of recommendation, also important. The rigor of secondary school record, class rank. Basically, rigor is if your school offers APs and honors classes, but you avoid all of them, for example, and you don't take any, then they think, why not, right? So if your school offers you a challenging path, but you shy away from that, then that's going to hurt you a little bit. Class rank is your percentile of your GPA. Of course, they're comparing you to other students from your school because typically they will accept about the same number of students from your high school as the previous year. So they have to compare you to other students in your graduating class, right, to figure out who will get those spots. Level of applicants' interest. This is interesting. This applies more for private schools, but there are ways that you can show demonstrated interest by attending school tours, reaching out to school officials and employees so that you can literally demonstrate your interest. Some schools even require or ask about it in their applications. For example, Santa Clara, did you visit us? Tell us about it, right? Who did you talk to? Some schools will also offer you an interview. If there's an optional interview, you should go ahead and sign up for that too. Again, any opportunity for this school to see you as a person is really important, right? Something that will make sure that you are memorable. Again, example, I had a student, she's going to Wellesley in the fall, and she was actually kind of scared that she wouldn't get in at all, or even they probably wouldn't even look at her application, for example, because of her GPA. Her GPA was pretty low, below average compared to her peers at her high school. But she fell in love with the school. We really worked on her application essay, her letters of recommendation, and also her interview, right? Because she asked me, oh, they offered me an interview. Should I do it? And I said, yes, absolutely. You go. You have to go. You have to let them know who you are as a person, right? And she was so scared. She was nervous. But I said, no, don't worry. It's okay. Talk to them like you talk to me. Just be yourself. And she had a really good time. She was really relaxed. And, luckily she had a good energy with her interviewer. And yeah, she's going in the fall. So definitely focus on interview if it's an option for you. Now, hybrid area is kind of like between under control and beyond students' control, your talent and your abilities. Some may argue that you're born with certain talents or abilities, but you can always practice. And it depends on if you have the time, if you have the resources to invest in improving those talents and abilities. But this is something that we try, right? Like if you can, try to find an area of strength and focus on that. You don't need to try to erase weaknesses, right? You don't need to try to improve all your weak areas. And then, sometimes you might just end up at average or above average in every category. You really want to try to stand out in just a few. So just try to focus your time wisely, your resources wisely. Beyond students' control, just certain factors that the school is looking for: first generation, alumni, your race, ethnicity, geographic location, religion, things like that. There are schools that have religious affiliations. There are schools that are looking for regional students. Even with the UCs in the statistics, you can see that it is actually easier for Northern California students to get into Berkeley compared to LA. It's actually considerably easier. Well, it's never easy to get into Berkeley, but it's considerably more difficult, let's say, to get into UCLA as a NorCal resident. So yeah, geographic locations really matter because the colleges, they're still looking for diversity when they are accepting freshmen, right? They're trying to create a diverse class. Okay, so race, these are kind of just outside students' control. All right, moving on. Second topic is, based on all that, all the information that they collect about you, right, in the Common App, there's also this new section that's going to be added to the fall application, 250 words. And I want to emphasize this, it's optional, optional. You do not have to, but it says this: community disruptions such as COVID-19 and natural disasters can have deep and long-lasting impacts. If you need it, this space is yours to describe those impacts. Now, I come from an English teaching background. I always tell the students, take a look at the prompt, really break down the prompt so you can understand what they are truly asking, right? What they're actually asking. Always look at the key words and then try to use synonyms, right? Paraphrase. So you can kind of get a sense, right, that they're really, really more interested if it has deep and long-lasting impacts to your life. If it doesn't, then you have to seriously consider what you're going to write about in this section, okay? And then it says colleges care about the effects on your health and well-being. So of course, if you contracted COVID-19, sure, talk about it, right? Definitely talk about it. Safety, family circumstances. If someone in your family, immediate family contracted it and it affected your day-to-day routine, of course, talk about it. Future plans. You were going to do this, you were going to go study this, you were going to go to this school, you were going to visit this, but you couldn't, right? Something about that, yeah, you can mention it. Education, I'm going to highlight because on the next slide, I'm going to emphasize what that means, right? Education, including access to reliable technology and quiet study places. So this is really, really more about if this is something that has seriously affected your immediate day-to-day routine, then yeah, talk about it. I'm talking to a lot of my students now, and they basically wake up late. They play games all night. The parents are saying, like, where's my kid? I don't see them anymore. I think that's pretty normal, right? If we think back when we were teenagers and, we were young college students, yeah, sometimes we stay up late, right? For whatever, many, many different reasons. But that's probably not something to write about. Please don't just say like, oh, my sleep schedule got messed up because I was staying up late playing games. You don't need to be that honest, I don't think. But if it's something that directly impacted your abilities, right, then yes. Again, this is a case-by-case thing. I would, probably be able to give better feedback if it's more of a personal example that you can provide to me. But in general, I would say this has to be a personal impact to you, all right? Now, I highlighted education. So this is what I mean by that. They expand this by saying grading scales and policies. A lot of our students mentioned that their school has gone like, pass, no pass, or some sort of hybrid system where their grades can, not go down, but they can go up, or they can go up and not go down. So maybe just briefly mention, right, what the grading policy has become at your school. Graduation requirements may have changed, instructional methods, a lot of classes are online. But this could also be a good time to mention that maybe you had some difficulty with the classes because your teacher had difficulty. Your teacher changed curriculum last minute. I've heard some students saying that their teachers have just basically given up. They're not even teaching anymore. It's just like reading at home. And unfortunately, that's probably, the most common thing to happen, especially to an English class or English related class, because English is more about reading something and then thinking about it and talking about it together. It's definitely harder to do online than something like math, right? Where you just, here's what you do in math, do the work, and then come back if you have questions. So yeah, I feel it too in my experience, but this is somewhere where you can kind of expand on that. Maybe you also were doing some labs that you can't do anymore. Robotics, right? Something that you need the equipment you don't have at home, for example. These are things that you can let the colleges know, but not something like I stay up late playing games, right? Schedules and course offerings. You were going to take some classes, but you couldn't. They got canceled. You were going to take it, but then something, right? What else happened in your life? Testing requirements. I was going to sign up for SAT June, May, April. It's all messed up. Your academic calendar changed, or other extenuating circumstances. So yes, the key is in any additional section, you don't make it sound like an excuse, right? You don't say like, oh, my grades went down because I slept late. That was within your control. Oh, I couldn't study on my own as well. Well, then you could have spent more time, so always avoid treating it as kind of like an excuse section, but this just to give them context, because colleges need to have context when they look at your profile, and they always say holistic admissions. So they want to know as much about you as possible so that they can make this kind of decision, so they're well informed. All right, so this is what I mean by education. Let them know about these changes. Don't be too wordy, right? There's going to be so many applications that they need to read with this extra 250 words. And honestly, a lot of them will be similar, right? We'll be talking about education like this. So just give them the information they need to know. But if it didn't really affect you directly or your family directly, maybe don't worry too much about it. So like I said, try not to make it sound like an excuse. The Common App, analysis of the Common App itself. So if you take a look at some numbers, first year and transfer numbers, so 1 million unique first year applicants, 5.6 million first year applications submitted, 31% of them first generation students. There are a lot of common apps to process, a lot of essays to read from all the schools. Okay, and then the darker blue, we have applicants that are transfer applicants, so 85,000 transfer applicants, 177,000 transfer applications submitted, right? And the 39% of them first generation students. So this is, again, just keep in mind who else is in the pool with you, right? With these 1 million first year applicants, if 31% of them are first generation students, and we know that colleges tend to, save some spots, or they do favor, right, this first generation mobility. So there are a lot of factors, even just like this one tiny thing, right, that we have to think about when we're deciding things like creating a school list, thinking about chances of a student getting into a particular school. We have to know things like family background, right? And I was just talking to a student the other day, and she just casually mentioned, oh, both of my parents are graduates from the same private university. And I said, oh, well, there you go. That kind of just already ups your chances of getting into that school. And she had no idea. She's like, oh, really? Oh, okay. So yeah, there are a lot of things we have to think about, consider, right, when we're trying to factor which schools would be a good match for you in particular. Applicants, where do they come from? 213 countries and territories. I'm going to start on the right side. 9% international, and top 10 countries, 25% from China. This is just some demographics, right? To understand, again, who else is in this pool with me, right? Who am I competing with if the colleges are looking for diversity, right? They're trying to make a diverse class. 91% of them from the US. And number 2 on the list, California, 9.3%. Okay, so 9.3% of 91%. That's a lot of students, right? Of 1 million, that's a lot of applicants. So the thing is, usually students ask me, well, now I'm worried, how do I become unique? There are so many students out there like me, I'm not unique. Other people do band, other people draw, other people are in the sports team, other people do CS on the robotics team. Yeah, you're right. Right? There are a lot of students who do those things. But my answer is always, how many of those students do the same combination, the same exact combination of what you do, and also have the same exact life experiences that you have? They have the same exact worldview and perspectives and values instilled upon you based on your life upbringing, your religion, your family, the location that you live in, all of that, right? All of the different things that you've experienced, all the things about you combined together, that's what makes you unique, kind of like the fingerprints, right? So there is still something unique. So that means you should write about yourself in a unique way. And I'm going to talk about this when we, in a couple of slides later, when we talk about how to write the essay, right? Because a lot of students, they grew up in this academic environment, English class, and it's always academic writing, 5-paragraph essay, introduction, thesis, right? Topic sentences. We're trained to write a very certain style, and we're trained that that is what's considered a quote unquote good, and that's what gets A's. But that's not the best personal statement writing, right? So that's usually the struggle that a lot of students have, unless they are avid readers and they are very creative, actually, especially students who enjoy creative writing, creative fiction writing, especially. Those students usually can transition to application writing pretty quickly and easily, whereas students who are more logical, by the book, sort of, right, and also kind of efficient because they are going for the A, right? That writing might not translate very well. Okay, first year essay prompts remain the same for this fall. Now the percentages are how popular those prompts are. So the first one is something about personal growth as a student, a teenager, right? And that's 22%. Facing adversity, 22%. Something about your background, identity, interest, or talent, something unique about you, 22%. And then 25%, topic of your choice. Now, we can assume that this one's popular because a lot of students will think, oh, this means I can just take an essay I already wrote for another class and I will just include it in there, right? And that becomes a very popular topic because it just saves time. A lot of high school students are just, okay, I just included my English essay or my, psychology essay. But the caveat to that is, right, you have to really think about, did the essay talk about you? Because this is supposed to be a personal statement. It should be about you as a person, right? How you see the world, how you want something in the world because of something else that happened to you in your life, right? It shouldn't really just be about like, I did this psychology experiment, unless you have really interesting things to say about it, but we would have to see. And then the last three small percentages, we have problem solving. When was the last time you faced a problem? How did you solve the problem? Challenging an idea. When sometime a time that you went against the grain, right? And what was that like? And intellectual curiosity. What's something that you think about a lot? Right? So the ones that are a little deeper and require more critical planning and thinking are usually the less popular ones. You can see where I'm going to go with this, right? What's going to stand out more to the colleges? Are they, another psychology experiment, right? The 25%. Or, this person actually, right? The student actually recognized the problem in his family or in his environment, right? And in his school place. And instead of just identifying the problem, he took steps to fix the problem. Okay, so now we're showing maturity, leadership, growth, right? It's not about what you write about. It's how you present that information, right? That's really important. This is another question I get, like, oh, I'm not that unique. I've only done Boy Scouts and band. That's it. That's okay, right? Maybe there was something you did in Boy Scouts, something you did in band. That's kind of more unique. My student who got into Wellesley, she wrote about a band experience. She also wrote about just going to a summer camp, that a lot of other students went to as well. But it's her unique experience that she had there and her view of the other students that she focused on. And we used that as her main essay because it was really, really insightful into who she is as a person. Okay. Choosing a CommonApp main essay topic. This is tough. But number one, don't write about COVID-19. Please don't. If you're going to write about it, chances are you're going to include it in that 250 word extra section. But this is what I mean. I teach essay writing for SAT and ACT, which is a timed essay test. And I mean, on the new SAT, it's not really a problem anymore. But on the old SAT, usually it was a prompt about, like something related to high school student life. And it's argumentative. So like, oh, should we ban like cell phones for people under 18, yes or no? And then, support your answers. And then ACT essay right now is still kind of like that because it provides you with three perspectives and the students have to choose one of the perspectives to kind of like defend or say that is the best one, but they have to criticize the other ones, talk about pros and cons and give examples. So also argumentative. I've listed 4 names here: Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Elon Musk, and George Washington. Typically, when you ask a high school student, talk about a famous figure in history, or a famous person who is, impacting science or, impacting society today. These are typically the names that come up. Think about as a teacher, as a college, as a admissions office. Oh, another essay about this, right? Another essay about this or that. It just starts to blend in, right? It really, really doesn't, stand out. It doesn't grab anyone's attention. And I've even had students who wrote about Gandhi and tried to quote Gandhi, but then it was the wrong quote. That just doesn't work. You really have to be careful choosing your topic because it could very well be they start reading in your essay, they lose interest, they skim through the rest of it, and that's it. We have to make sure we maintain attention in writing. That's a very important skill in writing. Writing is yet another form of communication, right? Just like talking. So if you're boring someone in a spoken conversation, you may very well bore them in a written conversation. And in this case, it's a one-way conversation, right? The other person can decide to just stop. They could just stop participating. They could just stop reading. So really, really important. And also, number 2, don't focus on someone else. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Spanglish. I think it came out in like 2004 or something like that. Basically, the premise is there is I believe she's Mexican, but there's a woman who immigrates to America and she works for an American family. The beginning of the movie and most of the movie is narrated by her daughter. and her daughter is applying to, I forget, some Ivy League school, but she's narrating her personal statement essay. And it's a very interesting description of her mother, and of course the whole movie explores her mother's transformation and adaptation to American life. But this is the problem, right? After I finished watching the movie, I thought about that wasn't a good essay. It was a good movie, but I don't think it was a very good essay because it just focused on her mother. If her mother were applying to college, that would be a great essay, right? Because that's all about the mother. But this didn't tell me anything about the daughter. It didn't tell me about how this affected the daughter, how she changed, how she grew. The whole movie and the whole essay, right, was about the mom. And just at the very end, she says something like, "Oh, and then this is why I am my mother's daughter." But you just use someone else, right? So yeah, don't focus on someone else. Of course, you can still mention someone else, but I've seen essays in which maybe like 85-90% of the essay is focusing on someone important to the student, right? But that's not really the focus of the essay. Really focus on yourself. Really focus on yourself. And that's my number three, my final number three. Dive deeper. A lot of teenagers, they need a little more practice. They need more encouragement, right? When it comes to self-reflection, understanding who they are, why they do what they do. And it's really important to guide them through this exploration. A lot of students will answer, like when I ask that question, they say, "I don't know." And I was like, "No, but you do know, right? Or what if you did know? And what do you think? And then let's try to figure out, like, what do you think, right? Because I don't know is a very safe answer, but there is an answer. There is always something. There is a reason, and sometimes the students, we go through this journey and they realize, oh, so it's because of my parents, or, oh, it's because of that one field trip I took in third grade. That's why. Great. We want to figure out where that comes from. So convey your inner thoughts and emotions. In all writing, you really should be taking more time to plan and think than you write, right? A lot of students, they say, I just wrote this. Like, okay, did you make an outline? Did you brainstorm? Did you plan? And I usually, I can tell right away. I'm really just asking to be polite. But, they say, no, I just started writing. Like, yeah, I know. I can tell, right? Because it sounds like a diary. You talked about A and then B and then C and then D, but you didn't really go deeper into any of them. So basically what you wrote 4 mini essays that didn't go anywhere, and you just kind of collect them together and you present them as an essay. But we really want to just pick maybe one of those and go deeper with more details. And it's not details about like what happened and like just not telling a story, but more about why or how. Okay, so this is not an academic essay and it's not a resume. I've seen a lot of essays that are like, oh, in 4th grade I did this, in 9th grade I did this, I went this, I did this. That's just your resume. You're gonna include that in your activities list, and you can also include a resume, like a straight up resume is optional. So you don't have to use this precious opportunity, this space to list things that they will already know about you. Compare this to more like a job interview. When you go into a job interview, right, we as adults, we have this experience. You don't just take your resume and you don't just read it, right, to the job interviewer, because they already have your resume. They want to figure out more like, are you a good fit for them? And also, are they a good fit for you, right? Because job interviews go both ways. This is kind of the same thing in a college essay. You want to present yourself as a student to show that you're a good fit for that school. So we have to figure things out like, well, what do you know about that school? Did you do research? No. Oh, I want to join and then copy paste like something program. Okay, what do you know about this program? I don't know anything. Okay, then why should they hire you, right? Why should they want you to come to their school if you don't really seem that interested, you're not that knowledgeable? So like I said, research, preparation, there's a lot of that goes into a strong essay. Be your genuine self. I've had students who, they don't really know how to express themselves, but then when I talk to them, they have a great personality, a lot of humor, and I said, that's okay. Include humor in your essay, right? If you can make them laugh, if you can make them, the reader, remember who you are, that's good, right? You've kind of won already. So you really, really want to be yourself. There are too many applications, too many essays out there that are very dry, academic, without any personality, right? You got to stand out a little bit. Focus on why and the how, like I said, not the who or the what, right? Not like I met this person, I did this, I did that. Okay, I'm going to go through the 7 prompts that you can choose from. And I'm going to break down what's the main point in each one, so that you're not accidentally answering something else, or you're not answering the entire prompt, which is important. Make sure you answer the whole thing. So the first one you can choose from, right? Some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful, they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. Okay, so there's a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful, right? That's the key word, so meaningful. It does not say so unique. Keep that in mind. We're not saying that you have to be the first person to do whatever in the world, okay? It's not unique, it's meaningful. What is some part of you? Your background is really important to who you are, your values, right? Your identity, your interests or talents. What you do is really, really important to who you are. Why, okay? A lot of students, the accident is when they just talk about it, but they never answer why, right? They say, oh, I've been doing this sport since I was 4. You know, I won this championship. We lost this thing, but then we came back and we won and da, da, da. Like, okay, great. But that doesn't tell me about why it's so meaningful, okay? So why is it meaningful to you and how it has affected you maybe in other parts of your life? Because that's really important, right? Some things that are important to you in your life have great and profound effects on who you are as a person. Tell us more about that. Okay, they want to see maturity. They want to see that you are a capable adult, you know, who's going off to college, and you're going to be a good fit for them on their campus. Maybe you're going to be a leader. Maybe you're going to be the glue person, right? Not everybody needs to be the leader, the loud person, right? No, definitely not. So just be yourself, though. Right? Know who you are. Okay, number 2, the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? Same thing. So it's focused more on the how, right? Like the why. So if something, you know, very, very short, like just explain what the challenge, setback, or failure was, how it affected you. Yeah, the problem here is a lot of students will take a very literal understanding. Just how did it affect you? Oh, my grades went down, or oh, I lost time. Maybe deeper, right? Dive deeper. So how did it affect your thoughts about this topic? You know, how did it affect what you do with your free time? Things like that. What did you learn from this experience? So what were you like before and after? This is actually a before and after compare and contrast essay topic, right? Paint a picture of who you were before this and then after. 3, reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking? What was the outcome? This one's pretty straightforward. Now, challenge the belief or idea. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I resisted arrest, you know, like it doesn't have to be that serious. But just something like, oh, I've always been taught this, or I was told this, or I always believed this, but then I changed my mind, right? Or I questioned it. And maybe you didn't change your mind, because this is what was the outcome. Maybe you just explored it, but you didn't change your mind. Maybe it strengthened your belief in that. That's great too, right? But what prompted your thinking? So again, maybe like a before and after, but more deeper into, more deep, right? Into like the why, how. 4, describe a problem you have solved already or a problem you would like to solve. It could be an intellectual challenge, a research query, question, an ethical dilemma, anything that is of personal importance. That's really important. Personal importance, no matter the scale. Explain its significance to you and what steps you took or could be taken to identify a solution. All right, a lot of students will look at the first sentence and they just start writing, right? A problem you would like to solve. I am going to solve world hunger. I'm going to solve the demilitarization of police. Great, great, great. Those are really great things. But what is the personal importance to you, right? What is the personal relationship of that topic to you? Significance to you? That's usually what's missing. And that's usually what, you know, kind of weakens this response if you don't answer this carefully. Again, always a reminder, it is a personal statement, not just a statement, personal statement. So a problem that has affected you personally is just my point here. Okay, number 5, discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself, okay, or others. So what was some event, something that happened to you in your life that just suddenly, you know, made you grow up, made you change your mind about something? I have a really, really good example of this one. Let me check. I have time to share. In 9th grade, when I was a freshman, at the beginning of 9th grade, I was a typical, like, I don't want to see my teachers. I want to avoid teachers and schoolwork and try to avoid school in general, right? So when the principal was coming around on I think it was like a Monday, and he was trying to tell us about this field trip that we could take. And, I'm sitting in the back, I'm not really paying attention because, the teacher's not talking. So, this probably is not that important. And he's talking about it. And I don't really hear too much, but until he says something like, oh, but you'll miss school on Friday because it's a 3-day trip. And that's when I started paying attention because, I can miss school, right? And then so I just took the risk, right? I took the, like, he wouldn't tell us anything more about it. So I said, okay, fine. Like, let's try this, right? I raise my hand, I sign up, I go. So I took that risk. And then when we get there, Santa Cruz Mountains, there actually aren't that many students from my school, maybe only like 5 to 10. And this is all students from my school. So from my own grade, only like 1 or 2 other people from my own grade. And then there are other schools and other students there too. And we're trying to ask each other, like, did your school tell you why we're here? No, like no one said anything, right? And then the principal shows up and he's wearing casual clothes and he says, talk to me, introduce himself by his first name, call me by my first name. And for a 9th grader, this is very confusing, right? This is very awkward for a 9th grader. So then we start eating dinner and it's like cafeteria style and we're sitting at a table with a lot of different people and still we're very confused. And so we're just trying to talk about whatever. And then after the meal's finished, this older man comes into the room. He's the leader of the camp and, he introduces himself, he welcomes us. And then finally he says at the end, right, just randomly, right, surprisingly, he says, if you are of Hispanic or Latino descent, now you have to stand up and clean all the tables. Right? And we were so shocked. And I was like, what? We were looking around like, what did we sign up for? And he said, no, he repeated himself, right? Like if you're Latino or Hispanic descent, clean the tables now. Some people did. Some people got up and they did. Some people got really angry and they ran out. Some people who were not Hispanic or Latino started helping others. And that was just really, really weird, right? Very, very awkward experience. And then we went to the other room finally after all that was finished. And we realized that we were signed up for a racial ethnicity kind of like awareness program. So let me tell you, before this, I was listening to a lot of rap music. I will admit I was probably not a very mature teenager. So this one weekend, after a lot of tears and conversations, and just cut the story short, a lot of very shocking things happened to us, right? Because they were trying to make us feel like true racism, like what it feels like. So after that, that's it. It just totally changed me. It totally changed my direction in high school. It changed the way that I talked to people and the way that I view the world. So that could be a perfect example of this topic, this prompt, right? I know that not a lot of people may have the same opportunity to have had this type of experience, but of course I'm really glad I did. And I didn't write about it. Back then I didn't have good advice. I didn't have any advice about college application writing. I should have written about it, but I never knew. I thought that, it was a really good experience for myself, but then that's it, and that's the thing I want to mention. If you don't tell the colleges, they'll never know. Right. And maybe that was just my being naive and maybe a little, immature about things. But yeah, if you don't tell them, they won't know. So then when I talk to students, right, I really need to have them tell me more about themselves, because if they don't tell me, then I can't help them and they can't write anything. So usually what happens is the students who I've worked with for a long time, especially since like middle school, we've built a stronger relationship. And, I can remember the things that they've told me throughout the years, and I can remind them like, oh, let's talk about this. This is the thing that you did in 9th grade that I think is really cool, or this 10th grade thing. And they're a lot more open and happy to talk about it. And those are usually the students with whom, writing the essay just is a lot of fun and really easy, right? The earlier that I get to know the students, the easier the whole process is. But yeah, choosing CommonApp essay number 6 as a prompt. Describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that it makes you lose track of all time. Why? Why does it captivate you? Right? Why are you so interested? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? So this is actually, the real question is, what's something that's so interesting to you that you study it on your own outside of class, usually, right? So this is just, what is your passion? Although that's the key word that colleges, they don't really want to see because they see that so much. But yeah, what is your passion? What are you really passionate about? But you have to prove it, right? You can say like, oh yeah, I like this. I like this a lot, right? How do I know for sure that you like this a lot, that you love this? So you have to prove it with stories. You have to prove it with quantity, right? I can say I'm a nice person, or I can say that I volunteer at the soup kitchen every Friday, right? I don't even have to say I'm nice, but you know I'm nice. I'm giving just by giving an example. So that's why we always hear show, not tell. And then number 7, share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. Unless you're super, super creative, I strongly do not recommend number 7. And please do not use something that you've written for class or school already. That said, I know that there are a lot of senior English teachers who are now asking students to write college app style essays for school as an assignment. But here's kind of the thing. I worked with a student who she brought me one of her assignments, right? And I helped her kind of revise it based on what we've seen works, right? And what the schools are looking for, the colleges are looking for. And it's absolutely true story. She turned it in after revision to her teacher, and her teacher gave it a C. And because her teacher said, "Oh, you're missing a thesis statement. You're missing topic sentences. You're missing a formal introduction." And I'm thinking that's an academic essay you're looking for. Then that's not really a college application essay, because you only have 650 words. You don't need to have fluff. You need to have no fluff, actually. You want to respect the admission officer's time, right? You want to make things as easy for them as possible. If they feel like they have to kind of sift through your words to find out who you are, they might think that you are a poor communicator. They might think that you're padding your essay, right? They might think you don't have as much to talk about compared to someone else. You really, really have to just get straight to the point, but at the same time, providing the proper context, right? You can't just start telling your ideas, but we need to know what's going on, So it's actually more like storytelling. So that's why I said earlier, if you are really good at creative writing and you read a lot of fiction, you're going to have this kind of natural advantage because you already have a sense, right, of good storytelling. All right, so those are, I know I went a little fast, but those are all 7 essay prompts that you can choose from for the CommonApp. So to summarize, there is an extra COVID section, right, that you want to include information about if it falls into like education or any of the personal impact, but you want to really focus on your main essay instead, right? Because there are a lot of students, a lot of applicants are going to be writing about COVID, so don't. So that's kind of the theme, right? If someone else is going to write about it and you're going to write about the same topic and the same kind of like perspective, maybe that's not that interesting to the admissions officers. So focus on you, still focus on what makes you unique as a person. Chances are COVID did not make you unique as a person. It affected all of us. It affected us in very similar ways. So there's probably something else that's unique.
Thank you, Daniel. So first question, can you use the same story used in the main essay on the supplemental essay?
No, you don't want to do that. Because if the school that you're applying to asks for a supplement essay, that means they're also receiving your main essay. So yeah, please don't write about the same exact topic twice. The good news is you could probably end up reusing some of your stories for the supplements, because the supplements will typically be different for each school. But yeah, keep in mind that your main essay is going to be the same for all schools.
Right, second question. My kid doesn't have a high profile EA or won any competition. What would he write about in college essay?
There's something else, right? There's definitely something else going on in that person's life that's worth writing about. And also the flip side, right? I would remind us is that just because someone attends a popular or well-known program doesn't mean that student learned a lot from it or took away a lot from it. You could just attend the program and not actually have gotten much from it. And sometimes I can feel this when I talk to students, oh, you went to this program, tell me about it. Oh, I went to the program and we went to the class and the teacher told us stuff and we worked in projects. I didn't like my group. I didn't really talk to anyone. I wanted to go home. Okay, then let's not talk about that, right? Even though it was a very kind of like prestigious event. And the flip side of that is also true. Someone who on paper, right, may not like look on paper as competitive, but again, that's why we have the personal essays. Maybe someone didn't have the opportunity to go to these events, whether it's financial or whatever reason. And maybe they're doing a lot of things at home. I don't know this person, right? And maybe this person is really passionate about something else. maybe not that interested in school, this is just an example now, and maybe making things at home with a 3D printer, that could be actually much more interesting and attractive than the person who went to the program. So it kind of just depends on a holistic view of what you have done throughout your 4 years of high school, that everything, really, really everything. Maybe you took a trip somewhere and just this one time you saw someone fall and you helped them and you talked to them and you learned a lot about their culture, like even a short story like that tells us a lot about who you are as a person.
The third question is, what would be criteria for using the optional COVID prompt as opposed to just making a short description about some programs you were going to attend or were canceled by COVID-19 in the additional information section?
Okay. Yeah. So basically, the COVID additional section is similar to the additional information section. So the additional information section, you also have another, I believe it's 650 words. And that's usually more for just extenuating personal circumstances that are excluding COVID specific things, I imagine is what they're looking for. I think that's why, they added this 250 word section. So if it's something that, again, was out of your control, right? This program was canceled because of COVID specifically, I would probably use that, COVID section to talk about it. Now, the additional information, I've had students talk about things like, their family separated. So, they always had to move back and forth between houses throughout high school, and maybe that's not something that they feel like is worth talking about as their main essay prompt. But this is definitely context for the colleges because they need to know that, oh, so you spent a lot of time traveling between houses. You had to deal with this kind of like instability, or you were this person who was the communicator between your parents because your parents didn't like to talk to each other. So you always had to deal with that, like something like that. That's the context, the personal life context that the additional information would be ideal for.
Another question, can we also use the additional information session to talk about our extracurriculars or awards and describe some of them more?
I would try to avoid that because you want to be able to include everything in the activities list section, like the extracurriculars, honors, achievements. Chances are, if you're going to elaborate, it's probably not necessary. Is my first response, but it is additional. Yeah, so based on what colleges say, they always say that more context is better. So they always want more information than less, is what officially their stance is. I would make sure that we write about it in a concise manner, so it doesn't sound like we're forcing the admissions officer to read a lot more unnecessary stuff. I don't like to say this, but it really depends on what you're going to talk about. I'm trying to give you an example. So if it's more detail about the program itself, maybe it's like a very unique program that is not as popular, then I can see that, yes. If it's to talk more about your achievements or honors or something, I would say probably not. Try to fit that into the other section. And then if you're going to expand on how it affected you as a person or something, that should probably just be a main essay prompt.
Thank you, Daniel, for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for all of you for attending our webinar. And that's all for tonight. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. And if you have any further questions or interested in any of our services, please feel free to contact me over email, phone calls, or you can even scan my WeChat code on the screen to join our educational WeChat group to receive our weekly webinar updates.